Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. So I think it's already recording. All right. So
Excellent.
hello, everyone.
All right, everybody.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, take it away. Take it away. I was just reading.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Data Philosophy Club. My name is Ferdinando, and alongside Yusha and Orlando, we're here to help you host this conversation. As always, don't expect something extremely formal. This is really an informal type of conversation where we're able to explore better certain ideas in a philosophical manner. Some time of pointers before any type of announcement. Please remember that the conversation, we try to keep it organized as much as we can. So if you are willing to or want just to participate, you can always just, I always try to do the example, unless you shall always get it fine. You just write an exclamation mark. That way we know exactly who is first and second and whatever. Because if you just raise your hand, we don't want to be like skipping on everybody's like order. Um, so yeah, with that being said, I do want to say thank you so much for your participation. It was very encouraging to see that you were using the format to give us the topic for today's meeting. So thank you. It was very insightful. Some of them were very much considering for future meetings, but we can only speak about one topic. So there you go. I don't know if Nancy, you have some announcement to do before we kick the meeting.
Yeah, just briefly. If you're interested in joining our email list, feel free to either leave your email in the chat or you can private message Fernando and he will add it to the email list. So you can get our weekly emails, and sometimes we send 2 or 3 a week. For example, this was an open topic today. So last week we solicited topic suggestions via this sort of poll through the email. So if you want to get involved with that, at the end of every month, the last meeting is always an open topic. If you're curious about our topic schedule, you go to the files in you go to the files in our Teams page, and you'll see Philosophy Club 2021 spring schedule. You'll see what the topics are for every week. We have monthly themes. This month was reality, so we're concluding our theme of reality today with the topic we're going to get into momentarily. Also, if you go to our Instagram page, you will see that we have under highlights the calendar, so you can see it there as well. I encourage you to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel with over 115 videos. This is recorded. It'll be going up on YouTube probably by tomorrow. And yeah, we have our own website. So feel free to check out all of that stuff. Again, you can find all of the information under files and teams and look at the, again, spring schedule. All of our social media info is at the bottom of that. Special belated birthday, happy birthday shout out to Professor Susan Carrillo. Thanks for joining us again today, Susan. And yeah, one final major announcement. Tomorrow is the very first installment in the Philosophy and Film series. Film, P-H-I-L-M. Pretty clever if I do say so myself. Tomorrow's film will be, again, it'll resonate with the monthly theme. So because we've studied reality this past month, the video we've selected is called The Zero Theorem. The Zero Theorem. It's a relatively new film. Stars Christopher Waltz, I believe. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. We're going to open up this very room right here at 4 p.m. We're going to start the screening at 4:30. It'll go to about 6:15, and then we're going to have a little 20-minute, maybe 30-minute conversation afterwards, which will also be recorded. You can check out what the film series conversations are like on our YouTube channel. But yeah, please join us. It's a lot of fun. We watch the film together, but it's not like Mystery Science Theater. We don't talk during it. We all watch the film, but then we chat afterwards. Yeah, that's about all I got.
Okay. Good stuff then. Cool. All right. Yes, if you also check the chat, I encourage you. Normally we have people who don't necessarily speak, but they say normal stuff, like very cool stuff. And also you sharing the link for you to the website if you want to know more about it and you also want to engage with us in the website. All right. So I'm not completely sure actually if the person who proposed the topic is here because I think he's working, which is sad. But as you can see, it's right here on the top. Can philosophy reveal things about reality that science cannot? Oh, there you go. So there you go. Efrain is actually here. There you go. Congratulations. You win this week. That's great. And you didn't have to deal with Orlando, the spicy sauce, stealing any type of idea. we avoided that completely. So, since you were the one who proposed this topic, I will encourage you then to you introduce it, and let's start with you, if you
All right.
can speak.
Yeah, like, can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay.
We
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this topic. I mean, I know I picked it all, but yeah, I just know like especially like recently, you see people like Sam Harris and a lot of these other kind of like public intellectuals. They try to, in a sense, kind of merge science with philosophy. They talk about how their science can control their philosophy, but there's another line of thought or another major line of thought that differs quite a bit from this, and it says that basically that like science is just like a subfield of like philosophy, and to say like science dictates philosophy is kind of like saying like like Indo-European or the study of Indo-European language dictates all of like linguistics or something like that, because it's just a subfield, right? And rather metaphysics and philosophy in general dictate science rather than science having a say over what metaphysics, ethics, or whatever else says about the subject. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very good point. And before I give the floor to Nancy, who is the next one in line, I must say that I was actually talking about it yesterday. When we're discussing how to like get ready for this presentation, like I agree with you. I feel like philosophy is, in some extent, what inspires science to exist even. But okay, I'm not gonna take much of my time. Nancy, go ahead, and yeah, let's
Yeah,
roll it.
yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of Efren there. Yeah, so the last few topics have kind of been like a separatization of this combination topic. So we talked about philosophy, or sorry, reality from a theological, more of a religious orientation, and then we talked about it from more of a scientific orientation, and then we talked about it from more of a relative perception orientation, if that makes sense. So now this is kind of like a galvanization of those three topics, which is again a really perfect way to end this theme. I'll throw something else out there, kind of elaborating on Efren a bit more concrete, I guess. I mean, can we argue that science, as a method, as a discipline, as a field of investigation, can we say that science is limited to the physical world insofar as most of the quote unquote results that come from a scientific approach tend to be quantitative? They're given a unit of measurement. And in order to measure something, there needs to be a physical component to it. Well, if you believe that reality is more than merely physical, then perhaps philosophy is better equipped to get at aspects of reality, dare I say, dimensions of reality that maybe is out of reach for science. Or, on the other hand, can we say that, well, and this is kind of a point I believe Orlando's going to elaborate on. Can't we say something like, well, science is kind of the crowning achievement of philosophy. So philosophy from back in the day, it was attempting to, oh, hey, what's up, Marcus? Good to see you, buddy. It's attempting to, back in the day, again, the origins of philosophy, trying to figure out the natural world, trying to figure out nature in a way that isn't really, it wasn't really precise. And it wasn't really, of course, technologically advanced with the tools we have today. But now with the tools we have today, perhaps philosophy is kind of maybe redundant. Maybe it's been surpassed by science in terms of, again, a methodical, precise way to investigate reality. So that's kind of two sides of the coin. Curious to hear what y'all have to say, and I'll pass it off to Orlando.
I think you made a really, I mean, a good, you put it in a good way that I probably would have said something similar in terms of like what you said about science kind of developing. But I wasn't really going to say that. I think my question here would be, okay, what exactly does it reveal? What concretely can philosophy reveal in terms of metaphysics, in terms of morality, or what have you? What is it that it can reveal that can be compared concretely to how science can reveal the laws of nature for us? I think that's a big question, and that's something that philosophers often ask themselves and then don't really have too much of an answer for. Um, in terms of what it can reveal that science can't, I mean, the easiest thing and most obvious thing is purpose and value. I mean, just think about the fact that, like, you think about things like the soul, you think about things like the mind, and these things aren't really kind of non-existent in science. But yet, when you think about these things and these objects and these values, you have this great feeling inside. You feel it feels good to you. So it's like it's kind of this whole idea of existentialism, even some essentialism, where basically purpose is kind of how you decide to come upon it. And so I think that is valuable in a sense, although I don't believe that it is as concrete as science is in terms of empirical evidence. And that's where I'll end it.
I see. I mean, it is a really good point indeed. And I like also the point you were trying to make, that there is a specific aspect of our life that, granted, they're not quantifiable, so we can't really use any science tool, at least so far, that allow us to measure those things, like such a like what was it again that you mentioned? Purpose, was it? I mean, and the whole aspect even of the soul. I mean, I guess in some moment we're gonna be that skillful that we can have tools to kind of like assess. But again, I do believe that philosophy to some extent is just connected with science one way or another. Um, oh, we have two more people trying to speak.
Hey, can I say something to that real quick?
Yeah.
So I agree completely that philosophy kind of did give birth to science completely. I mean, that's something I don't think anyone can argue. But I think in terms of like what Manzi was saying and that I was going to say is that, I mean, regardless, it's like it's a method, it's a way of thinking. It's as to like how we come about evidence and how we prove things. And when you relate something like philosophy versus science, science often it's not about proving something through just logic. It's about it's proving it through disproving it. Is that if I can just challenge it and challenge it and challenge it, just chip away at it, and it stands the test of time, that these observable empirical evidence that I have here, it just stands the test of time, even when others try to disprove it. That's very different from philosophy, where often it's kind of like you're just arguing. It's a lot of arguments, a lot less evidence.
I would say it's more than arguing, though.
I mean, in terms of evidence is what I'm saying. And yeah.
Okay, but I mean, I believe philosophy also have this their way to prove information, because we really go in depth on like exactly what we're feeling, what could be different points of view of the same scenario. Are we trying to kind of like found those faults in any type of like vision that somebody may be having? So we start kind of like assessing how true a vision can be or cannot. So I think that we do have a specific way, even the whole that if, there is a way that they do like some sort of like formula. So like to assess like if this is then this happened and this happened, then is this happening? I don't remember how that's called. I think it's part of the whole concept of I have it in the foot of my on the top and the tip of my tongue. Mansi, what is the term again? It's like it is related with, was it Kant? I don't remember. Ah,
Let them burn. Just let
I
them burn.
guess it's fine. I mean, I know that you're next, but okay. I have it in the tip of my tongue, but I cannot get it fast enough. So you're next, so go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I just want to make a point because I think we're going to move on from the point I'm about to make. But just to kind of tag something that Orlando was hinting at, uh, perhaps perhaps we could look at it like this: if, say, philosophy is devoted to trying to discover what our purpose is, or maybe reveal to us that we have to create our own purpose, whatever the case may be. If one decides that, well, our purpose is tied into our nature, and let's assume there's such a thing as human nature, if our purpose is tied into our human nature, then maybe science is doing the service of philosophy by investigating exactly what our nature is, especially bodily, psychologically. And if we can get a better understanding of, again, human nature, then we can get a better understanding of maybe what philosophy is hoping to provide. And science could be used as a method of investigating that very thing. So perhaps they're more complementary than they are antithetical.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, thank you so much. So now, Efrain, your turn. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Oh, you mute yourself again.
All right. Is this good?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So what I would say is that of science is rather like kind of like a sub branch of philosophy, right? Because science really, like at its core, is just a way that we can disprove certain things. You don't really like prove things with science as much as you do disprove hypothesis, right? Like you have a hypothesis, you test for that, and then it's either supported or disproven. And that's a kind of like a sub branch of, I guess it's like epistemology and like maybe like metaphysics. But like one thing that I thought of the other day was like science tells you if you jump off a building you'll die, but science doesn't tell you whether or not you should jump off the building or not, right? Philosophy might be able to tell you that, but science can't tell you that. So I don't think that I think there's a lot of things that philosophy can discover, especially with like ethics and like kind of like metaphysics and even theology, even that science just simply can't really tell us anything about. I think science is a helpful tool, and it is a tool, but there are limits to science. Like even if you go back to not Isaac Newton, but Galileo, when he was trying to prove that the Earth revolved around the sun rather than the other way around, he used rather unscientific means to do that. Like some of his arguments were really ridiculous for our time. Like, for instance, one of his arguments was that the reason why we have waves is because the Earth is moving around the sun rather than the other way around. And people at that time like called that ridiculous because they thought it was the other forces that were doing it. Sorry, but rather he used a lot of unscientific things to advance knowledge. And something that a philosopher called a Feyerabend talked about was that a lot of progress in human knowledge has come from unscientific reasoning, or actually in despite of science has come. So yeah, that's it for me now.
Thank you so much for your very insightful thoughts. So yes, in the meantime, I'm trying to help Mrs. Carrillo, but next in queue is the new 2.0 Mark. Marcus, you have a new haircut. Show it to the world.
Hey, all right, I wrote down a little bit of what I was on. I really liked what everyone was saying. I agree that science is, a sub point to philosophy, because to me, philosophy is like the first thing that happens when you're born. Because philosophy is wonder to me. That's the best way to put it. And everything we do, whether it be science, art, philosophy, is an exploration of reality in a different way. With science, we analyze. I think that would be the best way to put it. You look at a chair and you're able to know exactly everything about the chair, okay? But with philosophy, it doesn't tell you. Science can tell you how to be a healthy human, but it doesn't tell you how to be a good one, okay? Can y'all hear that in the back? Okay, I'm gonna go back inside. Hold on. Did y'all hear that? Okay, is that better?
It's better.
Anyway, I want to drive that point home that, science, it's the art of, when you look at medicine, okay, it's the art of the body, healing it, blah, blah, blah. But wielding it, every day, what do you do? A tree doesn't have to worry about waking up and going to a job, doesn't have to wake up and, think about buying food, it's given everything already. It doesn't have to worry about becoming what it's supposed to be. The human is burdened with that fact. And I think philosophy is exactly what teaches you how to deal with that. How to be, I think the purpose is how to be a better human, or how to be, the best human. Not if there is one, but that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't know if that's my conclusion.
Okay, good stuff. It is impressive. We're having a lot of requests. I just accepted 5 more. Okay. But thank you, Remaster Marcus. I can see what love does to your hair. Maybe Nancy can use your haircut. So, with that being said, Orlando, you're next.
So I kind of agree with everything you guys are saying in terms of just how useful philosophy is in regards to how it gives birth to curiosity. The only trouble I have is like when we say things like it's simply a sub, a sub part of it. I think you'd have to ask yourself, well, what do you trust? You know, I think when it comes to philosophy, there's a lot more subjectivity, although to some degree there isn't completely. But with science, there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot less, although there is some. Not to say there isn't any, but when you go outside and you get in your car, you trust that the science behind that car works. When you get on your phone, you make a phone call. Science once again makes that happen. So it's like for the most part, yes, they in regards that their subjective natures to them. One of them is a lot more conclusive in terms of like what it provides for you on an everyday life. In terms of philosophy, we have so many different religions and theologies that come to very similar conclusions, but at the end of the day, they all kind of disagree based on these like subjective cultural values. And I think with philosophy, just to kind of change the direction here, because I think we're doing science versus philosophy, which I don't really think it's that great. I think like in terms of like how philosophy works, I think it's true that it gives birth to a lot of the ideas. If you think like pre-Socratic era, you had a lot of philosophers who were thinking about like essentialism, like the smallest component of life, what could exist, how did they come to that, how they were thinking of that. And then you have science later on kind of proving that this idea can exist, like subatomic particles. So you think about it like that, is that they do complement each other. Is like in one instance you have this curiosity and like this sort of this not fiction necessarily, but sort of this wondrous thought that seems out of this world that science later on explores and can make it into kind of reality in a sense. And so we kind of see that where we can still think of ideas like of the soul, possibly other kinds of dimensions, existences. We can think of that metaphysically, though we won't have anything concretely, but maybe later on science can come around and say, hey, you know what? It's not so silly. There is truth to that. We can explore it using this.
I like your approach. I really much like your approach. And now we have a repeat student. I'm glad to see you again. Osita, you're next.
Oh, okay. Hi. Thanks. Yeah. I guess all I wanted to say was that I think that there's a reason why, like a PhD.
Am I the only one who stopped listening?
Yeah, he stopped
uh,
for me too.
you see, we can maybe say that philosophy help us here, but science is failing us completely.
Well, maybe his mic got turned off.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
That's
science
I
can
guess
be
that's
better,
not
but
really a science explanation, it's more of a
well,
logic
but this
explanation.
is the thing. Like we can argument why does it
Oh
fail,
my
but
gosh.
science is not really doing anything.
No, 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 no. No, philosophy's gonna ask, is it okay that he turned off his mic? Science is
Yeah.
that he turned off his mic.
What is the likelihood? But the thing is, like, we're
See,
right
in
now trying to see. Okay, I see. I hear somebody.
no,
Is that Osita?
it's just
Oh, it's
me.
Yusha.
You know, I have to cut in. At this point, I guess we can see both parties at play because science was the action of his mic being turned off, and philosophy was his choice or lack of choice of turning off his
Action.
microphone. But Karen, I see you have your hand raised. In here, we usually just put an exclamation mark in the chat. So since we have a little bit of time, can you really quickly go ahead and discuss what you
Yeah.
wanted to?
It's in philosophy something like genealogy because you're you're analyzing your history, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you have to do your history because that's analogy or asking question about your family. Your history is back in the days, right? That's that's still ethics, right?
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure if I hear the last part, but so far I was agreeing.
What I was saying is you when you do your family history, you have to analyze everything that's there. Okay. You have to do that to figure out where your family history is from and your the DNA. That's really ethics to me. Hi, Professor.
A professor, that's important. Like, if you are not a professor, then we just dismiss completely your idea because that's how we do things. That's how we roll.
Hey, I want hey, my dealing is I want to pass her class.
But it's
Right?
okay. But thank you so much for your. I mean, I see your point. We do have whenever we philosophize, part of how we do it is analyzing our experiences and try to make a projection of how that can like appeal to as much people as we can. I see the Osita retry to talk, so feel free to try again. And after Osita, it will be Yusha.
Okay, let's see if this works. So yeah, I was saying that there's a reason why if I get a PhD in biology, a PhD means doctor in philosophy, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's a reason for that, and it's the way that I feel a successful science PhD has to think. It has to be philosophically if they want to be successful. Um, and uh, I think that yeah, any sort of talk of like philosophy versus science doesn't make sense because one grows from the other. I think they're always intertwined. I don't even think one is like an old form of the other. I think they're always together. Um, and I'm lucky enough to work with a bunch of scientists at my job. I want to be a scientist. And the most successful scientists that work here are ones that thought in an unorthodox way, are ones that challenged sort of the field consensus. Uh, and they had a reason for it. They got lucky enough to have funding, and they finally, a lot of them were proved correct. Um, and that's when you get like the biggest awards is when you change things up. And I think that's what a lot of philosophers did. I'm pretty novice to philosophy, but I see like a lot of these philosophers will write critiques of other philosophers from past generations, which is what a scientist does, right? They'll take an old paper or something and they'll maybe try to reproduce it if they can't reproduce it, if they don't believe it, or they think that there's, in science papers, people will kind of give their theory of what's going on. If they present data, and they're like, well, this is what we think it means. Like, we're trying to extrapolate out. And some people will be like, nah, I don't think so. And so they'll challenge it. And depending on how the experiment goes is how it goes. But I think that's what successful scientists do. And they act like philosophers. That's why it's called a PhD. I think that they're like intertwined. But yeah.
That's a really good point. Just to add on to that, because like what you do, like if you read a philosophical paper and if you read like a science paper, they're very similar in the sense that you're right. Like you kind of reference a lot of the past work done before to kind of set like either precedents or kind of either you're observing something different from what they are, and that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like I think like all of us have some sort of mastery in philosophy because we do that on a daily basis. I tend to make that point all the time. But yeah, thank you so much. It was nice that your connection is work out at the end. And next is Yusha. So go ahead, Yusha.
Hey, thanks. I love the discussion that's going on. I know I wasn't there for the last meeting, but today's topic is kind of is tricky. I'm gonna say, and I agree with Orlando that you cannot put science and philosophy together because it just doesn't go together, at least in my opinion, because what science can prove, philosophy can only theorize and hypothesize because there's no set standard for proving a hypothesis in philosophy like there is in science. In science, you can hypothesize, you can create an experiment, you can recreate it, and you can find different findings from it. But for philosophy, it can vary even from a person to person. So as many people there are on the planet, there are as many philosophers. So we may agree to certain things, but we still hold our own opinion in the same matter. Because the other day I was just sitting there and watching TV, right? And in the movie that I was watching, they had these kids that were just playing around and making a fuss, and there was this traveler that had come to a town where these kids were making a mess. He said, don't you guys control your kids? And the parents said that we let them grow free, we let them grow wild. So it's another ideology of philosophy that the parents thought, okay, we can give them all their freedom and they can do whatever they want. And that was their idea of freedom. But where this guy, the visitor, had come from, it was a city where parents could not afford to leave their child to run around out in the open. One, because of traffic, two, because of predators and all that stuff. So it was a strange concept for him, and he was like, okay, but do you not want to protect your children? And these are the kind of differences that really matter in taking a look at different types of philosophy. But again, for science, it's pretty straightforward. You have a formula, you have an experiment set up, you have an environment, uh, chemicals, procedures, amounts, and all that stuff. And that's something you cannot do with philosophy. You cannot weigh and measure it. And that's why I don't think you can really reveal things about reality through philosophy or through science for that matter. Because in one of my previous meetings, I had discussed about how engineers only hypothesize and they only have theories how planes fly. Yes, I know it sounds strange that we don't know how planes fly, but it is true. I asked one of my engineering professors and he said, yeah, it's completely true. We don't have a concrete explanation of how planes fly. And same thing with light. We don't know how fast light travels. A beautiful video on YouTube is by a channel called Veritasium. And you can go through that to understand why we don't have an explanation for how fast light travels. But even through science, you cannot 100% understand reality.
I understand, but that last point actually goes a little bit away from what you were trying to say at the beginning. I feel like, I mean, if we go with the whole argument that there are as many philosophers as there are human beings, I mean, we don't study the philosophy of each individual. We have a specific branches that we look into it, that some of the ideas that most people look into it, like, like you don't see people saying, I studied the philosophy of Ferdinando. That's not a thing right now, but you do study like Kant, Plato, Socrates. So there are specific views that more people kind of like feel more lean to it. So we have, of course, I think it could be
Yeah, I understand.
misrepresented because we give the name to the philosophy on we are kind of to a person that maybe kind of like expand more into it, but the philosophy is not really of that person. It's just that that person was the one who blasted it out more, and more people is like, well, they kind of like put it into the name of the person. And same in science. Science, I mean, someone create something, and then we say that they're using the Pythagoras theorem or whatever. So I think that it's basically the same, because also philosophy has its ways to show whether like a thought is rational, or is based on something real. I mean, it bounds to fail, but so are science.
No, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Ferdinando, I think. Oh,
I
sorry.
understand where you're coming from. My whole point of saying that each and every individual is a philosopher in and of themselves is because, see, even if I agree with or lean towards what Kant had published or said or talked about or whatever, even if I agree to a certain extent to his philosophy, I still have my own views that not necessarily agree, because then I'm not being autonomous. Then I'm not truly exercising my choice to be free and make my own decisions if I have to follow in another person's footsteps. So that's why I said that there are as many different philosophers as there are human beings, because again, we don't 100% conform ourselves to the philosopher that we lean towards.
Also, just to real quick, because I'm gonna let Marcus go next, but it's just like there's a certain degree to which you kind of rely or trust the ideas of science or philosophy. You can choose to live by, I don't know, Plato's, Aristotle's interpretation of it. You could choose a certain religion. You can choose all these different lifestyles, and although the consequence might come later on, they don't necessarily come in a very upfront way. You can be an existentialist. You can be different. You can think differently. Yet your life, you'll still survive. If you choose to say, oh no, I'm just gonna drive without the seatbelt on because I don't believe the numbers behind the statistics, or I'm gonna eat the food, I don't care, I'm gonna eat it anyways because I don't trust the science, you're going to die. That's just scientifically been proven. These certain things have been found, and I think that they're very different in that manner. But I don't think that makes one better than the other. I just think that's just a difference between them, a distinction between them. But I'll let Marcus go next because he's next.
Well said all around. I want to go into the idea of, imagine like a world that puts which I think we are in a world that does this right now, but a world that puts science before philosophy, like hardcore, and we progress ourselves in science to a degree that is much further than where we progressed ourselves philosophically, you could say, or morally at that point, and what the consequences of that could be. Like, imagine it as like a video game, when you're picking your character's strengths and skills, okay, intelligence, luck, science, engineering, okay. Well, imagine if everyone, you just put all of your eggs into science, okay, but like humanity, like imagine all that, nothing in intelligence, nothing in, I guess intelligence comes with science, but let's just, okay, dumb it down. Nothing in strength, okay, nothing in philosophy, nothing like that, okay. What happens? We're essentially giving weapons of mass destruction then at that point to toddlers. That's what we've done with the world. Men in power get to a position of science through the means of science. Quantum mechanics now, God knows we're going to be able to calculate some shit that you couldn't even dream of. Oh, the boys in the military love that. They can't wait, okay, to use that machine. All right, but we give them a pad, a little like button display on the wall that says you can do all of these things because we have the capabilities of it, and you have the ability to act upon it. So feel free to drop some bombs wherever you feel like, maybe motivating some wars, because you have no sense of morality or a sense of, consciousness and right from wrong. We haven't really solidified yet. So it gets lost in the idea of war. We suddenly lose responsibility of ourselves in a crowd, even in a man of power who's pushing a button and telling orders. We forget that these drop bombs. We drop bombs. Imagine one like random, as a kid, you grow up, you don't think you're going to drop bombs on someone. You might, like, you have a little imagination, but you don't grow up imagining, like you grow up and you think, oh, I'm gonna be this, or I'm gonna be a policeman, a firefighter, okay, whatever, okay, a mailman, a milkman in the day, okay. But it's then we forget that we all used to be children. Everywhere you see every celebrity, every idol that you see people worshiping, every person in a position of political power used to be a child that was afraid of the dark, okay. They used to stub their toe on a table and bawl their eyes out. They used to not know what to do. They used to accidentally curse in front of their parents and say oopsie, okay? So what that's dangerous. It's a dangerous precedent. And I think it shows when you really start, looking at the dirt of America, and really the world. And so then I think it's very obvious that the world's just on a high-speed chase of science and kind of left. They forgot to pick up philosophy. They left it at exit 9. We're already at exit like 20. We've doubled it. We're not in a good place. We're scary. We could be doomed. We could be dooming ourselves.
That's a really good point, Marcus. Like it's I've heard this quote, I forgot, I think it's by Isaac Asimov. It's like, it's so sad to see nowadays how science has advanced, but yet our wisdom hasn't advanced. And it's like, that's exactly like, when you brought that up, I was like, man, it's so awesome, because it's like, you're right. We're advancing in terms of scientific knowledge, but yet the people in charge of it, the people who really have the power to change it, they don't seem to have the best interest of everybody or the people or of humanity, more of like interest in profit or things like that. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with science is people often will put just the sake of making money rather than the sake of bettering lives. And that's a really good
Well,
point you made there.
That's
But
exactly, going off that really quickly. As a child, okay, you think the world's a good place and you think everyone's a good person, right? But then you grow up and you realize, oh, it's actually not. But then some people come to the conclusion that, oh, God's not real because the world's a shitty place. Well, then what if people just, that makes no sense. Humans are under their own will. So it's, what, that just means that we're in hell already, man. What if this isn't a God, like, it's not a godless place. It seems godless because we're, oh no, we
okay.
do
But
bad
listen,
things,
like,
okay? Because we men who have no fear of God, okay, in position of power, have no sense of consequence. Imagine that. Like, where's the like? Where's the consequence sense? And whenever the line is blurred of whether or not you're responsible or if there's any responsibility at all, isn't that like, what if science is like, essentially science's ultimate goal is like knowing everything in the universe, and then essentially humans are God, or we prove that there is no God, okay? That's like the end all be all of science, okay?
but
So what if
Marcus,
with all that power now we can do anything and everything? We know there's not a God. All right, guys, that planet that we found, blow it up for the resources, go for it.
yeah,
Anyway,
That's a good like
i-
future
i-
topic.
yeah,
We should let the next
in,
person go.
I know,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
interesting all
Cut
around.
you on.
At some point, I thought we were kind of like taking the tangent on the topic, but good stuff. I mean, I like the spirit, I like the energy, but I want everybody to be able to speak their mind, so we can certainly just go with that. And remember, guys, those who are still here, we do offer the opportunity for you to talk with the officers and the advisors if you need any help with philosophy, if you just want to learn more about philosophy, we have that. We share that link with you in the email, so that's why if you want to be included in the email list, just please do so I can send you these resources. Feel free just to chat with us after the meeting is over. We can also do that. But next in line is Jason Antonio Ramos. You're next. If you're still here, of course.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? So yeah, Jason here. I just wanted to, I guess, just chime in and kind of answer the question: Can philosophy reveal things about reality that science cannot? I want to say that from my personal experience, I can kind of say that philosophy has shown me things that science never did. Now, for example, I was just kind of trying to think of like an example of like, what philosophical idea, brought me to believe that, and what's one thing that science did not teach me that philosophy needed. But it's not to discredit one for the other, but there's a harmony in them, right? There shouldn't be like this conflict of like, oh, this one's greater and no, this one's better. I think you got to learn how to introduce both of those into your lives to, be the best person and the best, intelligent person. And I guess just an example I was trying to think of was like, if we take like the mindset of science, right? If we say like, oh, well, if I give $1 to this person, but if you take that dollar and you give it to like all the people around the world, they're all going to do different things with that dollar. So, I mean, you can keep repeating it, but you're always going to get a different answer. But if you take like a more like philosophical stance with, with wisdom and the intelligence that you've acquired over time, and you learn how to, I guess, I wouldn't really say read emotions, but have emotional intelligence to understand the other person, then you can have more of an idea of what they might do or the possibilities of what they could do instead of just taking that straight science kind of route. But that's my 2 cents there.
Okay. Thank you so much. Those are very good 2 cents plus four. That's like a whole dollar right there. So thank you. Just so you know, Orlando, you're next. I'm trying not to talk too much
Am I
so we
next?
don't like run out the time. And after
Oh,
you, it will be Professor Suzanne Carrillo, just taking like
I'll,
ding, ding, ding.
I'll just go off of what Jason said because he said something really important there, and kind of what Marcus was kind of getting at too, is that like it's really philosophy is important that it informs of like us of the human condition, that like science is kind of like a tool, and the way we use it can be beneficial or it can hurt us. If we start using science in a selfish way, like a lot of these kind of for-profit companies that, they hurt the environment, usually they can use like beauty products on animals. They can do all these kinds of negative, really bad things. They kind of lack the philosophy, I guess, in a sense. They lack that standpoint, or they just negate it period. So like if we as a civilization, if we were to kind of promote science and philosophy both in this way where they're both kind of equal, like it's important to care about people in terms of value and purpose, and it's also important to just keep getting knowledge. If these two were to come together, then maybe we wouldn't see society kind of as bad as it is today in terms of just like turmoil. But yeah, really good point.
Okay.
I'll let Susan go next here.
Okay. Wait. Okay. All right. So, well, I think this person has disappeared. Was Mark somewhere in here at some?
Marcus, he's always in the shadow. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
He-
So, it's what? Oh, can you see me? Can you hear me? Everything turned green.
No, I cannot hear you. Sorry.
I can hear you, Dr.
No,
C. This is
I-
Ken
I-
Grassi.
I-
I see
I
you.
guess
No,
I
there's
guess
nothing.
move on.
Hello.
Oh gosh. Okay. Everything went green. Did everything go green for everyone else just a second ago?
No, it's
For
just
me, it's just black.
And
But
wasn't
that's
our
No,
topic?
this is
okay,
Ken
great.
Grassi. You're fine. I see you just like I would in class.
Okay, well, last week, remember we were talking about perception and reality and whether everyone saw the same thing. And right now, unless it's all in my mind, the whole screen went green. But you guys are telling me it didn't go green. But of course, it could just be my technology. I don't know. But more to the point and more relevant to the current discussion, I believe it was Mark Russell. Okay, I think that it was you. It seemed to me that you were setting up a very interesting thought experiment. And I don't know if I'm going to be changing what you were articulating, and I don't know if you were going in this direction, but I'm just going to add to or elaborate on what you said. So I was thinking as you were articulating the thought experiment, I'm like, imagine a world, and maybe this is what you were saying, where the only source of truth, knowledge, and wisdom is science. Okay? There is no other discipline or way of attaining claims or beliefs about reality. And it seemed like the direction that we were going in was maybe we can have science and maybe it can give us facts about reality, but will our experience as humans somehow be lacking? Will there be a void? And I think philosophers would probably say, yes, our soul. Even if you don't believe in an immaterial soul, even if you're not a dualist, for example, you could still believe that there's something that is more than the sum total of some beliefs that we have that are supposedly informed reliably by whatever method science has come up with. But another comment that I want to make, or some questions that I want to raise, is more of a framing set of questions for the discussion. And that is, in your question, the way that you set up this topic and articulated the questions, it seemed to me, I feel like I have to assume that you're talking about what some would consider hardcore science. So I'm guessing that you guys are talking about physics, biology, astronomy. You're not talking about social science, because, and then there's a whole debate about that, what is science? So then I'm thinking, well, there are scientists who engage in the scientific method who are also philosophically minded. And of course, within philosophy, you have people who do something called philosophy of science. And so I think that's interesting to talk about. And I know that there must be graduate programs out there, because I think I remember seeing some where you can take a course, like a graduate course, or even some upper level undergraduate courses in something called philosophy of science. And so you might look at some of the epistemological presuppositions, assumptions about knowledge that are undergirding the entire discipline of the hard sciences. For example, I'm of the belief that science wouldn't exist, or the disciplines as we know them wouldn't exist, if it wasn't for philosophers centuries ago stopping and saying, hey, is it really Zeus clapping his hands that makes it thunder, or whatever stories people came up with? Like, how do we know? And then this is what eventually asking these questions, led to philosophy, led to disciplines. So I don't know. So I guess, like I said, were you guys assuming just the hard sciences in doing that? And I guess that's it, just some random thoughts and questions.
For me, I was just taking into account the hard sciences, and that was for a very specific reason because if we start going into social sciences, we had discussed another philosophy thought experiment that took place in 82, I think, and the philosopher's name was Frank Jackson from Australia. He did a thought experiment on color, and he called it Mary's Room, if I'm not mistaken. You might want to look that up. And in the thought experiment, he put this girl inside a completely black and white room, no other color, even on television and anything. But throughout the 18 years she was in the room, she was taught about nothing but color, the properties, the aspects, but she could not see any color. So hypothetically, she knew what red was, but if you put a red apple in front of her, she does not know that it's a red apple. And when she was let out of the room, her mind exploded in a nutshell. So it's a very intriguing thought experiment. I would highly suggest to look it up if you want to find a relationship between philosophy and material sciences. It's a very good topic to look into.
That was interesting. Yeah, like I think we didn't really set the bounds in terms of science, in terms of the general topic, I think. But that was a really good point, Susan. Like when we look at a lot of the social sciences. What? Oh, sorry. Are you saying something? Okay, I'm just gonna go to the next person. Osita is next here.
Okay, yeah.
Can you just ask to be?
Wait, what?
My internet is bad right now.
Okay, bro. Okay, we're gonna let Osita talk while your internet is working.
Okay. Let's see, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I guess I was going. I guess when I put my exclamation point, I was gonna respond to Marcus. I think his name was when I was talking about, if there was no philosophy in the world at all and there was just science. And I guess as like I said, as someone who is a science person who's gonna have a career in science, that's sort of the reason why I really feel driven to explore philosophy, and I did it in my undergrad also, because there are things in science that really do, like, I guess for lack of a better term, like freak the hell out of me. Like, things like CRISPR is very dangerous technology. I don't know how I know it's pretty popular science now, but you can edit genes pretty much. And so that's all fine and good if you just edit one person's genes. But if you were to edit a gamete, if you were to edit, sperm or egg, then you've edited the human gene pool, and that has like huge implications. That could either be devastating for humanity, or or other things can happen. And so I think that if humans aren't careful, I mean, it's sort of like people were posting about the nuclear bomb and Einstein's quote in the chat, and it's sort of the same thing with the nuclear bomb. Like, we could kill ourselves 1,000 times over. If we aren't careful, we will, because there's nothing that says that we shouldn't. And so I think that's important. And so that's why I think philosophy is important for science. But I also want to, I guess, push back on the whole idea that they're like just two separate things. I personally can't get my head around that, because science is, in my opinion, philosophy. I think scientists think very philosophically, and I mean, even at the sort of, like, I don't know what you'd call the gray edge of science, where like research is being done, all professors have a theory of what they think is going on. I mean, I personally work in a neuroscience lab where we do things with like circuits, and like, do these circuits of neurons, what kind of like body process do they control? And, my professor thinks like, oh, it controls like maybe fine motor movement, but there will be other professors who have a different view of of reality based off of all of the available evidence, and they're just putting it together in the way that I think a philosopher would. They look at the world around them, they make a few posits, they make a few conjectures, and they support it. Some people disagree with them, but you can't really disagree on the evidence yet. And with philosophy, you can't disagree on the evidence, I guess, at all, because there is no evidence of like, oh, what way is a better way to live a life. Eventually, we'll have the answer in science of like, oh, what way is this? Are these circuits actually working? But when you're on that edge, as a scientist, I think you're also a philosopher. And I also think that philosophical ideas of like, I guess, for instance, this is a crude experiment of like, are you happier if you live an altruistic life? We might be able to quantify that if we just, take people, say, hey, be altruistic for a year, and you get like a baseline of like, are you happy? You can like sort of quantify a bunch of questions of like, and get like blood pressure, do fMRIs to see what's going on, and then have them be happy have them be altruistic over a year, kind of see them month to month, kind of get like readings. But at the end of the year, you might be able to tell, this group did no altruism and their happiness index or whatever didn't increase, but this other group was altruistic for a year and they are happier now. So science can maybe answer some philosophical questions. Maybe some philosophical questions we don't have the tools yet, but I think if we think philosophically, if scientists and both philosophers think outside the box, maybe we can answer more questions than we think we can. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not gonna expand too much on my comment. Mancy's next, then is Karen.
Professor.
Hey,
Now,
so we're at the 4 o'clock.
Someone is speaking, I think it's Karen.
Oh. This is fun. I like this. This is not over my head. This is very good.
I know, right? I keep telling people
Yes.
that, but they have
And
to experience it.
Professor, I better give me my extra credit, please.
Oh
You're
my
muted,
God!
Susan.
Yeah, you're muted. Now I'm doubting the reason behind the comments. I bought it. I bought it like at the beginning. Then the extra point kind of like.
But I have a question for the gentleman. When she went into the room, the girl, you said she was normal, right? Okay, but when she came out, it blew her mind. But were there no lights in there, or what was she looking at? The 4 walls that there were all different colors, or what? What was she looking at?
Yeah, it was just a thought experiment. By that I mean it was never physically done because of course it would go against the human morals and standards. But in the experiment and the link that I had shared, supposedly this girl was born into that room and everything around her in the room was black and white. Like it was very monotonous. It was great. Her light shades, her TV, her letters. The only thing that she was allowed to read and write was gray. Everything was in grayscale. So she never knew any color aside from gray, if you're considering gray a color. So it was just a thought experiment.
Now I understand, because when you said she went
Very
into
ethical.
that room, she went into that room and she was doing the red, and I'm going, wait a minute, he does not explain a lot of things to me. So now I understand what you're talking about.
No, yeah, I mean we're 5 minutes over already. If you want to go over the experiment with me again, we can stay a little after when the meeting is concluded. I can help you understand it better. But yeah, I'm here. The other officers are here, so I believe it's Professor Manzi.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have an appointment with Professor, my professor. I can't speak today. My Professor C, because I have things I have to do. And
Okay.
I enjoy this. This is interesting. Thank
I'm
you.
glad to hear that. You're very welcome. So yeah, we've run up a little bit past 4 o'clock. I just want to make some announcements really quickly. Again, tomorrow at 4 p.m., we'll be opening up this very room for a screening for the Philosophy and Film series. Again, the movie we'll be screening is called The Zero Theorem. And yeah, we'll begin the screening at 4:30. It'll conclude around 6:30. Then we'll have a little conversation afterwards to discuss the film. It's going to be fun. Again, if you're interested in keeping up to date on what it is that we do on a weekly basis, I recommend signing up for our email list. And in order to do that, just send your email address to Ferdinando or leave it in the chat. You can send it to Ferdinando via a private chat. It's totally cool. Also, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel with over 100 videos up. This will be up in a couple of days, so you can check it out. Watch yourself on the bronze screen, I guess. So yeah, having said that, just circling back around, it seemed like a lot of the discussion kind of goes back to what Efren kicked us off with, which is basically this idea of maybe the fact-value dichotomy. So again, you could say that science can deliver us facts, but they can't deliver us values. Philosophy tells us how to value the facts. So if you have one without the other, I mean, you have values, but nothing to factually base it on, no empirical evidence, to Orlando's point. Or if you have these facts without values, that's more to Marcus's point. Or maybe we don't really know what to do with this technology. But having said that, I think we have more students in the queue. I want to hear from the students. But yeah, if you gotta go, I understand. But again, check out the files page on this Microsoft Teams page, and you'll see our entire schedule. You'll see what topics are coming up next week. You'll see next week's monthly theme. And of course, we're hosting a philosophy conference in April. So if you'd like to get involved in that, and you want to start thinking about it now, feel free to reach out. And yeah, so let's continue on with the queue. But thank you for everybody for coming. This was a lot of fun, and it's still fun. So
Yes. I mean, I'm not completely sure. I think Karen spoke already, but she was in theory the last one on the queue. I do want to say that next month's theme will be truth, and next topic for this week will be fact of faith, truth, and true belief. That's for next week. Just so you can start like wrapping up those thoughts. I mean, if you are into it, of course. So, all right. I don't think there is
Hey,
anybody
Fernando,
else in the queue.
Fernando,
Yes, go ahead.
I love a lot of challenges.
You
I'm
love
6.
challenges.
Yes,
Good.
I have 10 dogs, 2 cats, and a bunny. I have a lot of challenges.
Well, I wasn't challenging anybody, but I liked your thought process. That's good. Yeah, challenge yourself, and then I guess I will have to challenge myself even further, and we can try to like to see.
I gotta go see my professor because she's looking at me look cross-eyed.
Okay, thank you. All right.
yes,
So yes, I
just real
mean,
quick.
I saw that Yusha is putting another thing to say.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Feel free to check our website. It's in the chat, and we do have philosopher chat hours where you can sit with me, other officers, and even the professor. The link is on our website. It is also included in the emailing list. So whichever is easier for you, feel free to go ahead, sign up for officer hours if you want to discuss something about class, something about philosophy club, anything basically regarding philosophy or any branch of it. So yeah, I would highly encourage all of you to go and check out all the hard work we've put in to help you guys. And we'll see you guys tomorrow and then next week and the weeks following, hopefully.
And special shout out too. Special shout out to the professors who made it here today.
Round of applause.
Oh, here we go.
Wait, I turned my mute off. This is Ken Grassley. Yeah, thank you all very much. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed myself today.
Okay, yay!
Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff.
See you guys later.
Okay, bye.
All right, yeah, and real quick, special shout out to the professors who are here today. Professor Susan Carrill, Professor
Yay.
Lisa Benton, Professor Debbie Nichols, all around. So yeah, thanks for stopping in, professors. Very happy to have you all here. And yeah, I guess that'll do it. And then myself, of course, Professor Manzi.
Oh yeah, you too. All right.
But you don't count. You're a lie. Okay,
All right,
so I
take care,
guess I'm gonna stop the recording now. This has been Ferdinando Castro Gonzalez. Good job.